Hey, welcome back to the Few Show, everybody. My name is Bud. I am an account executive here at xfusion.io and co-host of the Few Show. I'm excited to be joined today by my guest, Brandon Lee. Brandon's journey spans leadership, development for nonprofits, flipping houses, building a soft skills education company for teens, team member number 1 at YC startups, Searchlight.ai, and Zone of Genius Institute CEO and founder. This proprietary personality assessment helps people feel more aligned. Brandon has a deep passion for teaching, coaching, and empowering others to become their most whole selves. His content has garnered over 17 million views and featured on media outlets like Inc.com, Time, BBC, and Huffington Post. Brandon, thanks for being on the show today, man.
Yeah.
Pleasure to have
Thanks
you.
for having me, bud. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yes. So I was going to have you on here to talk about Searchlight, but it turns out that you have just quit working at Searchlight and started your own business, which is Zone of Genius. So we are going to kind of switch
Gears.
directions and talk about Zone of Genius,
Sure.
which I think is actually very, very cool. So tell us about Zone of Genius, and we will go in that direction, and then we'll kind of work backwards and talk about some other things that you have done.
Sure. As an intro for Zone of Genius, I don't know about you or maybe the listeners how often you've taken those personality tests online, but every single time I've gotten the sense of like, oh, this is kind of cool, and it's kind of off, or like, I don't know what to do with it now. And so that's the current intention with Zone of Genius. I am building out a personality test, and the goal is to try to make it a lot more tactical so that people can walk away with a much more clear sense of, oh, this is how I can change things in my personal life or my professional life in order to feel more alive, feel more energized and excited about my work, rather than this kind of begrudging, oh, I got to do my job because, it pays the bills. But like finding that intersection of what you can get paid to do and also enjoy is very hard for people to find. And so I guess one of the underlying missions is how can I help people do that more consistently and hopefully more systematically? And that's maybe the high level intention.
Nice. So I think this is rather funny because I have 2 shows today that I'm doing.
Okay.
And the other one is I actually did one of these personality tests because it's for a company called Humanizing.
Okay.
And they do sort of the same thing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go ahead and try it and fill this out so that they can, I can do, I can say, hey, I've done this. And so I just think it's rather funny that I'm doing 2 of these in the same day.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I think it's rather odd how that works for me. I end up doing, when I do these shows, I end up doing in blocks where I have the same types of things either in the weeks or in the same days.
Yeah.
I don't know why that happens, but it does. So I just want to know how your personality test it differs from some of these others, because you're right, they're starting to become more and more of these out there.
Yeah.
So how does Zone of Genius differ, or how does it stand apart from some of these other?
2 points. One of them, to your previous point about how you're talking to human intelligence later today. It's interesting because Searchlight, where I just left, it is actually about assessing soft skills. It is actually a pre-hire assessment. So there's a lot of intersection between understanding people on a soft skills level at Searchlight, and maybe what human intelligence does. I believe it's more probably about culture, but there's a lot of similarities. So
Absolutely.
I'm definitely in the space of truly wanting to understand people and how to move humans forward. That would be probably a broader theme of my career. But to answer your question, what distinguishes Zone of Genius from all the other ones? One very powerful distinguisher is that it's not necessarily user-generated questions or user-generated responses. Like a lot of assessments are like, hey, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you lean? Or do you heavily agree with the statement or heavily disagree? And the issue with a lot of those assessments is you have to rely on the consistency between the person taking the test to correctly understand the question and answer it from the correct place, right? So one thought process that I have often is, well, am I answering as my teenage self? Am I answering as myself from 4 years ago? Am I answering as the idealized version of myself? Am I answering as my current self? And because of the lack of clarity there, I think it leads to some muddy responses. And I've really only seen one assessment that explicitly says, please answer in this way. Please interpret the questions in this way. Please do not take it if you're tired. Please do not answer it if you're depressed. And I think most assessments do not do that. And the format of Zone of Genius is I actually ask people who are taking the test to actually fill out an entire reflection worksheet where they share 8 stories and they answered open-ended structured questions about those 8 stories. And currently I am the algorithm. There's no digital test that they're taking. I read all the responses and I synthesize all the responses. And then I share from what from having done this 100 times, what I believe their genius is. And I give them tailored insight based on those stories that they share. So the main differentiator right now is it is incredibly high fidelity to their specific situation in a way that no other assessment can because it's not automated, at least not yet. So that's one of the biggest variables. I guess 2 is people, it has a very high NPS. I ask people at the very end of the session, every single time I ask them, scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to share this with a friend? NPS is over 80 right now, which is pretty unreal.
Nice.
From even my experience building a lot of things in the past, like that is insanely high. And I've only promoted it once on my Facebook and I've had 100 people go through it. I've never had to market it. People just keep sharing it with each other. So those are, to answer the question, I think those are the 2 things currently that distinguish it. Hopefully a few more as I continue to work on it.
Nice. So, from what you were saying earlier, a lot of those questions get muddied up, and that's one thing that I noticed. Going through that one that I did earlier, you're answering several of the questions, the same questions in different ways, and I answered them differently, because they were just different. They're like, here's a 12-minute test, basically, and it took me about 20 minutes because I'm like, wow, I just don't know that I like the way this is. Put together.
I always get that feeling.
So awesome.
I always get that feeling.
Because
it's sometimes do you feel like, are you a structured and organized person? Well, I don't know. Most of the time, no. But for things that I really care about, yeah. Or in a lot of questions like that, where it's sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. So do I just go in the middle? Is that signal? Is that high signal of an answer? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take yours as well. I'd really like to see how it how it differentiates between the one that I took. So
happy to run a session.
I think, I'd like to do that later today after my other show just to see.
Yeah.
I think that there's a reason that you're doing this though. What is the driving force behind why you're doing this?
Yeah.
You went from Searchlight, you've reinvented yourself several times, right? You used to be in real estate. You used to, this is quite a leap from where you used to be. So what was the progression from your old self to going to Searchlight, to quitting Searchlight, to starting this? That's quite
go back that far. Okay.
We can go back that far later if you want, but there's got to be a driving force here.
Do you want to know about the driving force on a macro level, what drives my entire career, or specifically what you asked around what brought me to Searchlight, left, and then Zone of Genius? Because I think there's similar questions but different.
Are they? Well, we have time.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get into all of it.
Okay. Then maybe the question is, what drives all my reinventions in my careers choices at this point?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go there.
I would say it is looking for aliveness. I think that's one of the biggest things. I don't think that's what I would have framed or described as an answer early in my career. I think early in my career, I would have just said, I'm looking for purpose and meaning. And I think over the years, I think I've realized I'm just looking to be excited about what I'm doing. So like when I was in high school, I was very depressed in high school, and I was very skeptical that I would ever end up in a 9-to-5. I had this painted idea of corporate life that was like corporate drudgery, living in a like 9-to-5 cubicle. And I'm like, I will never do that. But I just never had a clear idea of what it would be. And so I always had that in the back of my head. And basically every career decision I've made was a simply matter of looking for options, looking for alternative options that would give me some kind of spark of, I'd be excited to do that every day. That was the baseline. And that's where every single one of my career decisions came from. So when I dropped out of college to work with nonprofits, soup kitchens, hospitals, churches, it was because I got a taste of it part-time on the side. And I'm like, whoa, this is actually much more interesting than studying psychology and like, I don't know, going through 6 years of school to maybe do something meaningful to help someone in a therapeutic context. It was just too far away from me. And so that's where it started. And I thought naively at that age that I was going to do that for the rest of my life. And I was totally wrong. Sure. Because, I mean, in your early 20s, you're miscalibrated. So I got a siren out here.
That's all right.
But I basically did that for a couple of years and realized, hey, I'm no longer excited about this. I started getting more of a curiosity around money, because being a nonprofit, I basically was broke for like 2 to 3 years. And so that's when I realized, oh, money is important, or it does have some value. And so I swung the pendulum on the other side and realized, you know what? I want to understand money, strategy, and business. And so I read somewhere that 70% of millionaires owned real estate. So I made that blanket assumption that was actually pretty accurate. And I dove into flipping houses because I'm like, I really want to learn this. And I had a full body yes, so to speak, to like, I'm going to go all in on this. I did that for 4 years. And yeah, a few more transitions led to starting Orenda because I wanted to find the intersection of business and impact again. Like, you know, there's a lot of sharks in real estate, and it's a very like status-driven, ego-driven world. And I'm like, I'm not really driven by that. So that started getting old for me. I had learned the lessons I wanted to learn in business. Orenda Academy, which is my soft skills company for teens, that was my attempt to combine the world of nonprofit and money. It was very socially impact-driven. Did that for a couple of years. Co-founder and I wound it down because it didn't make sense on a business level. And then I ended up joining Searchlight because I was like, you know what? I'm ready to learn from other people. I've been running solo for so long. I've been like the head honcho for so long. Maybe it's time I learn from someone else in a different environment, not own all the little things, not be responsible for every single little thing that breaks or works. What if I just coast, work for someone else? And turns out it was a great decision. I really enjoyed the stability. I really enjoyed learning about hiring at Searchlight. And then on the side, I had been prototyping for over a year, Son of Genius. And I had so much excitement around it once I started it, and a lot of excitement from my community, my friends around it. And the tipping point for that was that I had an angel investor kind of come out of nowhere and say, hey, I want to see this exist in the world. Here's some money. Long story short, they basically said, here's some money, play with it for about a year. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say no to that.
Nice.
It's not every day in my mind that, an angel investor randomly comes up to you and be like, hey, I want to see your idea exist, and here's some money to play with. I don't hear about that happening.
Right.
So high level is I'm really looking for meaning and purpose and aliveness. And I will follow the path that I'm on until I feel like that's kind of dwindles or fades. And then I'll probably have that itch. And I'm like, what am I doing next? And I start looking for that. And so the theme historically is really around how do I help humans develop? How do I develop more self-aware people? How do I move humanity forward? Because I don't know, for some reason that's very resonant for me. So yeah, hopefully that was too long.
Nice. No, I think that was great. Is that idea of helping humanity move forward, is that something that came from childhood? Is that something that came from your parents? Is that something that was just innate in you?
Definitely not innate. Maybe partially from my parents and upbringing, but I would say mostly because because of my depression in middle school and high school, and also kind of just in reflection for myself. Like trying to help myself get out of depression has driven a lot of that thinking. Like I was suicidal at one point. I ran away from home at one point in middle school. I remember feeling in high school, just feeling like I was treading water and just waiting to graduate. Yep. And just, I remember waking up at, I don't know, like 6:30 a.m. one time and absolute dread of like, I hate my life right now. I'm going to school. I don't care about school. I don't think I'm good at school. Why am I waking up 6:30 a.m. and doing this for 8 hours? And I feel like I don't have a choice. And I don't think I did have a choice. So I felt incredibly powerless and purposeless at that time. And so I remember when I was in my first year in college, I was like, if I ever figure this out, figure out how to be not depressed and figure out how to have an invigorated perspective around work and careers, I want to share this with everyone because it's so painful to not have that. And when I found it, it was like the best thing in the world. Best thing in the world to me. And so over the years, I've just seen how rare it is, how much more people want, but don't necessarily know how to get or how to have. So a lot of this is kind of like being the person that I wish I had in those days when things were kind of dark, things were kind of pessimistic. Yeah. So it's kind of like an ode to myself.
Yeah. Well, I can see that makes sense now looking at your LinkedIn, your volunteer experience and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're camp counselor, summer camp counselor, student mentor, just being that person mm-hmm. that you wish you had. Yeah. You know, helping the kids mm-hmm. that in the situation that you were in growing up. Yeah. So, kudos to you, man. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So thank you for being that guy that you know was in a situation and saw a problem and is helping to take care of that problem for others, because yeah. depression and teen depression is a much more prevalent problem than people give credence to.
Totally.
So
yeah. And a lot of people don't.
Now
a lot of people don't necessarily like think that this is the driver, but like when it comes to even like content and you know, there's the sexy metrics of like, oh, like I've been on these outlets and like all these views. A lot of the stuff that I put online from a writing and video standpoint was all baked in the same underlying purpose. Was I just want to help people through the lessons that I've learned. So a lot of the writing that I did was on Quora, and a lot of it was just answering like life advice questions to like young people who were like very lost. So all that stuff, like I wasn't doing it to market. I wasn't doing it to like build a personal brand. It just happened to do that. But really it was just, there's people out there that are struggling with these things. And especially like you said, like teenage depression is definitely a real thing. But I feel like a lot of young people are lost. And I feel being a young person is hard regardless of where you're at. And you're kind of just figuring out yourself. You're kind of figuring out what you need, like who you are, as well as like how to even survive on your own. And there's not a lot of guidance out there because there's no necessarily like financial return on investment for a lot of companies, so to speak, to invest in young people because they're broke or like they don't have as much mm-hmm. discretionary income. And so like they're kind of like a neglected population, and even more so with teens because like they're even younger. So that's just a side thought.
Well, it is. And I mean, you're correct. And I think it's even harder now than when I was a teen, you know, like we would go out and I would at least go out with my friends and that's getting harder and harder. My oldest son, mm-hmm. it was like pulling teeth to get him to go out with his friend. I'm like, you need to go hang out mm-hmm. with your friends. He's like, I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm like, there are no friends here. He's like, they're right here, pointing to his headphones. And he's like, I'm playing whatever it was, World of Warcraft, or whatever it was. Like, those are not your friends. Those are probably 30-year-old men who are in their parents' basement. I mean, they're not your friends.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it was like pulling teeth to get him to have any kind of social contact.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have friends that you can go out and say, hey, my dad's being a dick.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, they're not maybe going to give you the best advice, but they're gonna be people and not some invisible something.
Space to be
and
human.
My friends, like, I just went to my best friend's son's wedding in Washington State. I live in Colorado, and I just got back yesterday, and we've known each other literally since birth.
Oh, wow.
And my other best friend, met him in 4th grade. He was up there too. And you just don't get those relationships that much anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy the way that things have changed because of the technology.
Yeah.
And so I think it's much more prevalent now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's very, very sad to me.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So.
State of our society.
It is. It is. But I don't think it's completely gone. I think that
it's just harder.
It is.
Harder, so it takes more
It
deliberate
is, for
effort.
sure. Yeah. And I don't know if you've noticed or if you can speak on this, but like there's a huge difference between my sons and my daughters. Like, my daughters are still very much, and I think it's just females in general, very much still have a pack mentality. Like, my daughters go out with their friends much more than my sons do.
Yeah.
Not saying that they can't be as depressed, but I notice it much more with the boys.
Yeah.
That being said, you also have this thing called the Parent Project, which is inspiring people to rebuild their relationship with their parents. Where does that come from? And tell me a little bit more about that as well.
Where does that come from? I was never really proud of my relationship with my parents. In my middle school and high school years, my dad yelled at me a lot for like the very typical Asian trope. I didn't get an A. I got a B+. My dad would yell at me. It sounds like a trope, but I mean, I lived it. My brother and sister, older brother and older sister, both did a lot better in school than I did. So I just felt like shit a lot of time. And he would yell at me a lot, and that really eroded our relationship. And so I was never really on good terms from a childhood perspective with my dad, at least from a teenage perspective side. With my mom, we just never really got along either. She didn't yell at me as much, but like she'd kind of nag at me and like, did you do your homework good? Did you do your chores yet? And I kind of just wanted my space as a teenager. So by the time I went to college and, started my own like life and career, I basically never really tried to engage with my parents. It was just like arm's length. I just stayed away, avoided, and didn't lean into it. I was never proud of it. It was really, for me, a symptom of, I have so much stuff to figure out on my own. I can't really focus on that yet. So once I started figuring myself out more in terms of, what makes me tick, what do I like, what do I enjoy, where do I want my life to go, those questions started bubbling up in my mind more like, hey man, okay, you really should talk to your parents more. Like, so it was always a nagging thing in the back of my mind starting in my early mid-20s. But I never had the guidance. To be fair, I never looked out for guidance to figure out how to improve that. It was always just something that I thought, well, if I ever have kids and my kids ask me, hey dad, what's grandma or grandpa like? And like, if I didn't have a relationship with my dad and my mom to be able to answer that question to my kids, that would not be a version of myself that I'd be very proud of. So I think that was one of the biggest things that like, I want to do something here, but I don't know what yet. And so basically over my mid-20s, I was always looking out for small ways that I could rebuild that relationship. So the Parent Project was birthed out of a group of two friends and I. We basically used to talk every single week. We still do, actually. And we ended up starting to talk about our relationship with our parents, because we all had a similar upbringing. We were all Asian. We all didn't have the greatest relationship with our parents at a certain point. And so we kind of made a social commitment to each other to talk to our parents once a week. And one of my friends, his name is Joe, he actually started a company called Parents Are Human. And it's basically a card game loaded with about like 40 questions for you and your parents to basically play with, to answer together. And it's because under the frame and guise of the game, it somehow becomes more socially okay to ask all these personal questions to your parents. And like these questions are kind of leveled, like some of them very like simple and straightforward, like, hey, what was your favorite food as a kid? And they get a lot more personal as you go along. And so we leveraged that game to play with our parents, to talk to our parents on a weekly basis. And the goal was, how do we build a better relationship with our parents? That was the entire goal. And basically over the span of a year, we started last July, and we basically started wrapping it up this past July. And I talked to my dad for the very first time in like 10 years on the phone. I started calling my mom on a regular basis. And of course, at first she was like, why are you calling? Because I would never call. Right. And then,
Sure.
And now we just have very normal catch-up calls. And with my dad, like now I'm actually friends with my dad. My dad's actually kind of cool. And now that I'm an adult, and now that we've kind of like, let the past be the past and build something moving forward, my dad's kind of cool and we get along. I think we get along. I get along with my dad more than my mom, ironically. So that's what the Parent Project is. We live stream, and we used to live stream every single week our debriefs about, hey, what happened in the past week with our parents. And it was meant to just inspire people like, hey, like we're just doing the work, doing the hard work to do the challenging thing. And we want to create a normalcy around it. Like it should be normal to try to have a good relationship with your parents, but we didn't see that modeled to us. And so I think that's my answer to both questions. What is it? And like, what was that birthed out of?
Yeah, that's amazing. There's a lot of the founders that I interview on here, they see a pain point in the market, and so they go to fill it with whatever they start, right? Whatever business they start. You're a little bit different, right? Like you see a pain point in people, and you try and better people. And that's where your business ideas come from.
Yeah.
And that seems to be kind of what your life is, even personally.
Yes.
Like I don't know, and this may be a little too personal. And you don't have to answer it if you don't want. But have you been to counseling for any of this? Because it almost seems to me like you're your own counselor. Like you've seen these pain points, and you're like, hey, I need to fix this. And so you find a way to fix it.
Yeah. Ironically, I've never been to therapy. But I've done a lot of coaching, and I've been a coach to a lot of people, and I've coached myself a lot. And so a lot of the mental health challenges that I've gone through over the years, some way or another, I found a way to work through it and tried to condense those lessons to help other people. And that's what informs a lot of the work that I do. But yes, I've done a lot of digging. Some people call this shadow work. Some people call this like working through your trauma or childhood wounds. But yeah, I've done a lot of that over the years in various ways, but never in a formal therapy context, because for most of my 20s, I couldn't afford therapy. I was too broke for it. Sure. Because therapy is expensive, because I didn't have like insurance until my last job. So absolutely, I think it's a core way for many people to grow as humans. But for me, I largely have done it by myself or with friends in much more informal context.
Yeah, it's apparent to me that like your brain works differently than a lot of people, and it's very courageous the way that you work through things. There's a lot of people that just don't want to do it that way. They're like, hey, I don't have a great relationship with my parents. Screw them.
Yeah.
And then they want to go through life being mad, and blaming a lot of things on their parents, and then just being upset and bitter.
Yeah.
And you and your friends are like, okay, I see this, and I don't want to be mad. I don't want to be bitter. And, let's figure this out. And then you start this. And I mean, especially, from what I know, my limited capabilities from the Asian culture, like that's very, very difficult.
Yeah. It's pretty hard.
It's very, very difficult from the Asian parent side as well.
Yeah.
My niece is married to a Chinese gentleman, and I mean, she's going through a lot of that with him, and it's very bitter, very hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like, kudos to you. And it shows in what you do professionally as well.
Yeah.
So, very proud of you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, you have absolutely, unraveled the way that everything you thought was supposed to be done. I listened to your TED Talk from 2015, and you said, I thought that I was supposed to get into, get into a job and stay there for years and years and years. And that's just not the way, that's not, I figured out that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So then you started learning how to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and it's worked out, awesomely for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think on that note, I mean, I appreciate the note around courage, but I always try to make it a point to humanize that a bit, because honestly, from my perspective, it never felt like courage. But at least my understanding of courage is like, you do something even though you're afraid of it. Like, there's fear there, and you do it anyway. For me, it didn't feel like that. At least when it comes to the career side of things, I didn't feel like I had a choice. Like, I felt like if I don't do this, I'm just going to be depressed. And that was more powerful to me than any fear of, if anything, disdain was more powerful. Like, the idea of doing something I hated for the rest of my life, that sounds more painful than the promise of maybe coming across something I enjoy. And when it comes to my parents, I framed, I think I'm more scared of, from an integrity standpoint, the example that I mentioned, if I have kids and my kids ask me, hey, tell me about grandma and grandpa, that's an integrity issue for me of I would not be proud of that. And so I think part of it, I think when it gets framed as a courage discussion, I think that intimidates some people. At least it would have intimidated me, because I don't think for a long time I would have framed myself as a courageous person. And I think maybe an alternative view for people to consider is thinking about, well, what do you care about? What is more important? Or if you continue life as it is, are you happy with that result? Are you proud of that direction? And maybe that is equally as, or could be even more powerful motivator than just saying, I'm scared of this thing, yet I'm going to do it anyway. Because courage requires a deeper level of conviction. And I don't know if it's as simple as telling people, hey, go have courage. And that, because that's never worked for me. So I'm kind of speaking to even my own experience of I've never believed that I was a deeply courageous person. I just care about something else. And that something else, or that fear, are interesting motivators, and has led to a lot of my decisions.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do, but courage is doing the right thing even when you're afraid, or in the face of danger, or in the face of fear, I guess. Kind of like a warrior on the battlefield. They're afraid, but they're moving forward, and that's where I was going with that. So yeah, but you talk a lot about integrity, and that is one of your values that you live by.
Yeah.
and you show it. And audacity.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of your last values, or that is the last value that you live by. Mm-hmm. The people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take, honestly, it doesn't take much to change the world.
Yeah.
It just takes somebody who's willing to do it.
Yeah.
And, spending time with kids who are depressed is a big deal to that kid that is depressed.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the world to them.
And that kid that is depressed, who becomes not depressed anymore, could be the one that changes the world.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You changing the way that you have, changing your relationship with your parents has changed the world to your parents. And when you have kids, that relationship that your parents are going to have with your kids has changed their world.
Totally.
Because that grandparent grandchild relationship is absolutely huge. So that one decision has changed. I mean, how many lives potentially?
Yeah.
Depending on how many kids you have, and then how many kids they have. So I mean, it's just huge. These little steps that you're taking are massive.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate for kids.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, we have 5 of our own, and then we've fostered 35.
Whoa.
And adopted one of those.
Holy crap.
So we
wow.
we are advocates.
Yeah.
We love
Very
children.
Cool. Very cool.
So I love to talk about
Wow.
kids and just helping them. So
Yeah.
I mean that's
amazing.
Yeah,
35?
brings a smile to my face.
35?
35.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane in an amazing way. It's a lot of emotional labor, lots of giving, giving a lot of yourself there. That's a different level than coaching, because they're living with you. It's a different level.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. It's a lot of good, and it's a lot of hard. Mm-hmm. There's a fair amount of bad in there too, but
I'm sure
it's
messy.
It's good.
Life is messy.
It's very messy. Yeah. It's very messy.
Humans are messy.
But yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
But I mean that's why I appreciate what you're doing so much. And that's why I was interested in the parent project, because those relationships from those kids and those parents are messy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mess
There's
there.
a lot. Wow. I have respect.
Is there a website for that parent project or anything like that? Is there a place to go to look that up, or is there?
It's actually just a Facebook page. So if you shared the link that I shared with you earlier to the audience, one of them links to that Facebook page. I believe it's hashtag the parent project, and the O is 0 instead of the O. So / the parent project 0.
Yeah, everything that you shared with me right before we came on, I'll make sure is on the landing page for sure. But no, it's very, very cool. Everything that you're doing, your trajectory, I think, is out of this world. I love what you're doing, and who knows? I would like to ask where you think you're going to be in the next 5 years, but who knows?
Yeah, totally.
Like it's you in 5 years ago, you never would have guessed where you'd be now.
Exactly.
So,
I don't do well with that question because my trajectory is I usually change every 2 to 3 years. I pick a new direction. So
yeah.
So
I will ask you this though, like you've been a 3-time founder and you've been a leader on several different things. So what in your mind makes for a good leader, and how are you working on that?
What makes a good leader? One for sure is humility. I think a lot of leaders that I've seen or read about, like they have trouble admitting that they're wrong or they have flaws or have mistakes or make mistakes. And I think that just goes a long way, even for me, to earn trust. If I'm following someone, they're willing to admit error, that's huge bonus points for me. Because I think it just takes not having too big of an ego and just being a human who has lived life to realize that you're not perfect. Humility is one. I think genuine care actually matters. Like I see too many leaders or managers who view the people, quote unquote, under them as less than people. Like they're there to do someone's, like their agenda and their bidding, and they don't really care for them personally as a human. And I think that's a mistake because one of the easiest ways to earn trust is to show that you actually care about their growth, their thriving, whatever it looks like. Because I mean, that's the premise of friendships, right? So humility, like genuine care, some fundamental value or some strong why, because I think leading anything requires some level of vision, some kind of conviction, and things are going to get hard. Things will always get hard at any point when you're leading a thing. They will always eventually look bleak. They will look discouraging. Multiple bad things will happen in the span of a day or a week or even an hour. And you need to have a strong reason for doing what you're doing to get you through those days or nights. And if you don't have one, that's what makes you quit. There's nothing wrong per se with quitting, but it just shows that you didn't have a strong enough why. And quitting means that you're going to shut the thing down and, well, people are no longer following you. So if the goal is to be a long-term leader of a thing, I think those are three pretty key fundamental things. Of course, having a lot of ability to navigate ambiguity is also pretty critical. I think the list can go on pretty long, but if I were to name just four, it'd be those things. So humility, caring for people personally, having a strong why, and knowing how to navigate ambiguity. If I were to pick four.
Nice. I like on your LinkedIn, under your about section, we've gone through a couple of them, but it's your values that you live by. You know, and everybody can, be like, yeah, integrity, blah blah blah. We've talked about that, but you have a couple of different ones here.
Yeah. Like
incrementalism.
Yeah.
Build bridges and abundance. I think we've pretty well hit some, your curiosity, your integrity. But talk about incrementalism, and then we'll go to build bridges.
Yeah.
Because I think those are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I want you to hit on those a little bit.
Great question. I don't know if I've ever been asked this, but I put it there for that reason, because I think not a lot of people take the time to define some of their values. But to me, I don't even know if incrementalism is the right word. It's just how I think about it. But it's related to growth mindset, and it's the philosophy and idea of taking very small steps. And taking small steps is what leads to amazing progress. I wrote about this on Quora once, where like the Great Wall of China was built by laying the first brick. And the Great Pyramids were built by laying the first. A marathon is run by taking one step and a bunch of other steps. And that's just something that I didn't have and was not aware of as a teenager. I was one of those kids that was always jealous at the other kids who could like sit down, play a piano piece, and mesmerize everyone, or like, spin the basketball on their finger for like 30 seconds. And I'm like, how do you do that? And it was like a wall to me. It was like this black box. I'm like, how do you learn to do that? I used to believe that people were just innately talented. It's like, well, they have that talent and I don't. And basically throughout my 20s, I realized like, oh wait, I can learn. You just start by being shitty at a thing. And then if you keep putting energy into it to correct those mistakes, you get less shitty at it. just a little better. And like, if you're willing to go through the effort to keep going through that discomfort of, I'm not that good at this yet. If you're willing to keep persisting step by step to improve that, you will get good at it. I guarantee it, you will. The question is just how much time and energy you put into getting better. And I'm actually in the middle of an experiment right now. But it's to make a point. I've been learning this piano piece that's actually very hard. It's called All of Me by John Schmidt, one of the piano guys. It's a very fast song. It's a very, like, it looks complex when you watch the guy play it. I've been working on this song for over a year and a half, by every single week for 30 minutes practicing with a friend. We hop on a video call and we just practice piano. And I've been working on this for a year and a half. I haven't played formal piano and taken piano lessons since like I was 8. And I basically want to eventually publish this video and just tell everyone, I've been working on this song for 2 years or 3 years. I can now play it like near perfect fidelity to the original guy who played it. And this is how much time I invested. Weekly, 30 minutes for this long. Like, and just to make a point around, like, if you care about learning a thing and you put consistent effort into it, you will master it. It's just a matter of time. And so that's
just doing it. Yeah.
And so every skill that I had, it was because I fundamentally believe that I can get good at it. It's if I care enough about it. And I think that's the plight of a lot of young people, which is I don't feel like I can do anything. I don't feel like I have skills. That's how I felt when I was 20. Entering the job market. I'm like, I can't do anything. And I felt very lost as a result. I felt very hopeless as a result. And so incrementalism, or just the idea that I could get better at things, changed my life. It turned me from a pessimist and just very jaded about the world to someone being very optimistic and excited to get old, because that means I learn more stuff. I'm more capable of more things. So that's incrementalism.
That's awesome. And then building bridges.
Building bridges. I don't know. For me, I've always just believed that if you burn a bridge, you just don't know what you've cut yourself off from. It doesn't matter if someone has like you don't like them, or like they don't believe the same things you believe. But if you at least be on good terms with them, I would say like a lot of economic opportunity, career opportunity, friendships, like life-changing conversations have always come from one-on-one conversations that I often did not expect. I was raised as a very conservative Christian. And so I was actually taught, like, people who are gay are living in sin, and like you avoid them at all costs. Yet, like, I don't know, like some of my closest friends right now are part of that community. And I've learned incredible things from them. And my life would not be the same at all if I like continued to hold on to that prejudice that I was raised in. And that's just happened countless times. Some of those memorable and transformational conversations I've ever had with people that I might have not expected, but because my default to saying yes to people, even if I, at first feel sketchy about them, or like unsure about what it might be about, or whatever they care about, or what beliefs they have, I set that aside. I always try to set that aside, give everyone a shot. And some of the most unlikely friendships have come out of it. And so whatever I can do to like just show that I care about people, that they matter, and that I want to support them if I can, I think that goes a long way to build bridges, connections that could last a lifetime, or just very unforeseen benefits of like, I moved in with a bunch of friends because I took that chance. Or like I got my job at Searchlight because I was willing to say yes to these kinds of one-off interactions that seemed like there wasn't a clear takeaway for me. There wasn't a clear what's in it for me. There wasn't a clear benefit. So a lot of things, countless things have come out of that for me. So just build bridges. There's so much in the world that's causing us to divide. You disagree with me on this political issue, and then I think you're like the devil, or like like I feel like there's so many things in society that seek to divide us, and at the end of the day, we're all just humans who have feelings, who have fears, hopes, dreams, and we just want to be happy. We want to have a life that of thriving if we can. We want to be in pain a little less. That's common with all humanity. So like the more we are, the more we do to try to connect with each other and help each other out, I think that makes for a better society, a happier society, people less jaded. So there's so many things baked into that, but like those are some high level points there.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we could probably talk for quite a while longer.
Probably.
But like I said, I've got another show that I've got to get ready for here in a few minutes.
No worries.
So I think we probably better wrap this one up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the same two questions that I ask everybody that's on this to finish this thing out. What advice would you give to founders or soon-to-be founders that are going to watch this program?
Don't get too attached to whatever you're about to do. And because like, I mean, look at me, like this is my third time. It's my third rodeo. You know, it's easy to pay attention to the news and be over glamorized, like Stanford founder at age 21 with $1 billion company. And it's just like, don't worry about that. Like, do things because you care about it. Don't do it for the ego. Don't do it for the prestige. Do it because you care about the problem. And like, it's okay if you fail. It's okay if it doesn't take off. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. You can take another stab. Like, I'm 31. This is my third go at it. Like, I'm a lot more equipped as a third-time founder than I was as a first-time founder. And I think a lot of people take a very short-sighted view when it comes to building a thing. Being a founder is like a long-haul hat that you can always put on and take on and take off. And the less pressure you put on yourself to have to make this one company that you're about to start the successful thing, like, that's a lot of pressure. And I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. I've done it quite a few times. And bootstrapping is hard. So if you can avoid it, try not to bootstrap. It'll just eat a lot of mental health and years off your life. I personally don't recommend it. So as best you can, try to have revenue before you jump. So you're not like in ramen mode. Ramen mode sucks. It's not always preventable, but like if you have a choice, there's a lot of benefits to not. There's a lot of trade-offs. It's not that clear cut either, but that's my personal leanings. So those are my big few bits of advice for new founders.
Awesome. And then the last question is, what is the best way for our viewers to get in touch with you if they so wish?
You can add me on Facebook /whizbopping. I think there's a link that Bud will distribute. That's my link tree. You can find me all over the internet on Quora, YouTube, Facebook, Substack, Medium. So I'm all over the place. Feel free to follow me on any of those things. And I'm happy to share an email with Bud that you can share with in the profile section if people want to get in touch with me personally.
Awesome. Brandon, this has been very, very cool. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, likewise.
You have a really good rest of your day, and thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the questions. Total blast. And again, mad respect for being a foster family to so many people. I don't hear that a lot, and that's from the glimpses that I have. It's very unseen, under-celebrated work. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for everything that you've been doing. I appreciate your outlook, buddy.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Cheers.